Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Jordyn and welcome to my Aardvark reading vlog. This is a series I do on my channel to keep up with the books that I get from Aardvark Book Club. This video is not sponsored, though I do get sent some of their books sometimes for free, and I do have a code with them, but I'm also just a regular member who does pay for my credit every month and pick a book every month because I'm looking to try out this relatively new service and be able to recommend it to my viewers or talk about what might make it worth it or not worth it for you. And this week I've got a lot of books to get through. This is a combination of books that I've picked and purchased myself and books that they've sent me. We've got a bunch of different genres here, so let's just go ahead and get into the books that I will be reading for this vlog. First off is the book that I did pick for myself, I think in March. It's a thriller called 48 Clues into the Disappearance of My Sister by Joyce Carol Oates. Just based on the title, I haven't really looked into the synopsis. It sounds like it's about a girl whose sister has gone missing and she is trying to find her through little clues, like little pieces of clothing and things that she's finding along the way. The audiobook for this book is so short, and I can tell why, because the writing in this book, if you can tell, is really big font and really spaced out. Plus the book itself is really short, less than 300 pages, so I'm very interested to see what kind of mystery this book can craft in such a short amount of time, but very excited to read this one in this video. I also will be going back and reading a book that I got in, I think, November or December of last year. I believe this was a book I picked for myself, but it's called Gilded Mountain by Kate Manning. This is a historical fiction book. I don't know a lot about it. I do have the audio through Hoopla. The top of the synopsis says, set in early 1900s Colorado, the unforgettable tale of a young woman who bravely faces the consequences of speaking out against injustice. It sounds like something I would like, almost Kristen Hanna-ish. I've been out of the mood for historical fiction lately, but I really want to get myself back into it, and I think this TBR and this book are going to help me do that. So excited to get to this one. And then the next three books that I have were all sent to me by Aardvark to help promote their March promotion that they were running. The first one they sent me I am so excited for because I've seen nothing but rave reviews for it, is The House of Eve by Sadika Johnson. Another historical fiction. I believe this has been a Read with Jenna book club pick. I think it's going to be about womanhood and motherhood, which are themes that I really enjoy. So can't wait to dive into that one. And then the one that I'm most unsure of, that I'm not sure if I'm going to enjoy, is A Half-Baked Murder by Emily George. This is a cozy mystery about a woman who starts a cannabis bakery. So she infuses weed into the things that she bakes. That's not something I know a whole lot about, but I'm curious to see what that brings to this cozy mystery genre, which otherwise I feel like can feel very kind of innocent and, you know, cozy. So I will give it a fair shot. I do really like the cover of this book and all of the bright colors. Aardvark, I have to say, is really killing it with the covers of the books that they pick, especially going into the last book that I have for this video, which is my favorite cover by far, The Dream Builders by Oyindrila Mukherjee. I am not sure if this is historical fiction or contemporary, but it's about a main character who is returning to India to mourn the loss of her mother. And it's written from the perspectives of 10 characters, which I am intrigued but a little nervous about. That is a lot of characters to keep straight, so I hope that I'm able to, but I really think this is like the coolest and most beautiful cover I've ever seen, so excited to try it. This is actually the book that I'm going to start with because it's the only one that I can't get an audio version through Scribd or Hoopla. So I'm going to go ahead and read it physically. You may have noticed in the intro of this video, I am looking and sounding a little rough. Today is a Sunday. Last night, my husband and I went out for his birthday. We went out with a couple of friends. So we sent our kids to stay overnight at my parents' house, which was really nice. We had a lot of fun, but I am definitely feeling the repercussions of it this morning. I did get to sleep in, which is huge, and we won't be getting our kids back until a little bit later this afternoon. So I have some time to dive into this book physically now. I will also be on sprints on my friend Kendall's channel later tonight for her 1-year booktube anniversary celebration. So I should have lots of reading time today, hoping to get a good chunk of this knocked out. I will be back once I'm a little bit into it and can give you a little bit of an update on this book and the plot and how I'm enjoying the many different characters. And then of course we'll get on to the rest of the books. right, friends, it is the next day and I've got some pretty substantial reading updates. So the first thing I want to update on is that I made it to page 152 of The Dream Builders. To give a little bit more information about what this book is about, essentially our main character is the first perspective we get, where we're following our main character named, I think, Monika, though I don't know, I haven't listened to it on audio, so I don't know the exact pronunciation. But she is a woman who has been living in the United States for the past like 12 or 13 years. She went for school and then graduate school, and now she is a professor. And then she found out her mother passed away, so she decided to go back home to India to stay with her father. And where her father lives now is in like a big city in India, which sounds like it's very different from the town she grew up in. And it's very different just in general from the India she remembers from her childhood. And she's drawing a lot of parallels between the city in India and America. And I thought it was really interesting in that first chapter from our main character's perspective, reading about all of the things that had been Americanized in India. I actually wrote down some things as I was reading that were interesting to me. So the first thing is that right when she leaves the airport, she sees a Trump Towers sign, and there's like this community of 7 towers being built in this city she's in India called the Trump Towers. And on page 7, she said she had flown thousands of miles, but the shadow of America had nonetheless preceded her here. And that kind of sets up what continues to happen to her. And she has a bunch of other experiences that I feel like the author did a really nice job, if this was her intention, of making an American feel like they can visualize the city in India because it's constantly being compared to America. Another example is that she was riding in the Indian equivalent of an Uber, and she said when it finally came to a stop at one of the towers surrounding the smooth lawn, Monika thanked the driver just like she thanked all the cab and Uber drivers back in America, automatically, from habit, without giving it any thought. He glanced at her quizzically in the rearview mirror, surprised to be acknowledged. I thought that was an interesting scene because I can very much relate to the experience of thanking an Uber driver, and I can see that feeling odd if that's what you're used to and then you say it and somebody gives you a weird look. It's kind of jarring and like, oh, I'm not in America anymore. There are other cultural norms here. I also think this is maybe particularly interesting to me because in my current job, I work with a lot of people in Europe. I also traveled to Europe last fall for work. And since joining this team and working with Europeans, my perspective has kind of been changed because I have been born and raised in the US. So I'm very much US centric, as a lot of Americans are. And my viewpoint has been expanded to remember that US cultures and customs are not the only way of existing. And it's amazing when you talk to people from other cultures, the little things you find out that you take so for granted or you think is a norm everywhere that you realize it's not. So all of that I found really interesting. And after that first chapter, I was really excited to continue on in the book. However, this book is told in 10 different perspectives. So after that first chapter, we are now cycling through different characters. They all seem to be either directly or tangentially related to Monika or in like her circle of friends and relatives, you know what I'm saying? So it's all still centered around kind of the same community, the same drama, the same main characters, but it's different perspectives. And unfortunately, with each new perspective that I read from, I have gotten less and less interested in this story. My biggest problem is that there is no plot. Our main character is back in India for the summer with no goals other than to be there for her father. And then she's also a writer and she wants to write a collection of essays about contemporary India. But so far, 5 of the 10 chapters into this book, she's made no progress on that book. So I'm not really sure what this book is leading to, and I'm not sure I'm gonna get it. But this is not giving me what I wanted, and I don't think it's because of the content. I think the content is good. I think it's the format and the genre that aren't working for me. I think this is a very, very character-focused, character-driven, slice-of-life story, which is not my thing. I am very plot-focused. Yes, I can fall in love with characters, but I need them to be doing something. I need to root for them in some way, and I need there to be some kind of progression for the story, and I just don't feel like I'm getting that here. We're getting a lot of mundane drama and rich people gossip. It's a little bit reminding me of Crazy Rich Asians in that sense of following really wealthy people who live in this area, people who are considering renting spaces in Trump Towers, which is costly. So I feel like I want to DNF this book on a personal taste, and I want to recommend this book to people who feel like they would like it. Because again, I wrote down quotations that I thought were really interesting and thought-provoking, and I think those continue throughout the book, but I get less and less interested if there's just no plot for me to be following. So if you are a character-driven reader, if you like reading slice-of-life books where there's no real goal for your characters, you just want to know how the characters live, and you're interested in reading about this contemporary India setting, then definitely pick this up. I just don't want to finish this book and give it a low rating for something that is such a personal taste thing. I'm not interested in reading 5 more 50-page chapters from random characters that I don't really care about. Just the idea of continuing this book is not fun to me, but I still feel compelled to talk about it in a positive light and recommend it to the reader that will be entertained by this. So I'm going to be DNFing this book. I really hope that my points came across and that this book is still appealing to somebody. It's just not for me in those very specific ways. So after putting this book down last night, I actually did this on Kindle sprints. I read this book for one sprint and then I came on and was like, I think I'm gonna DNF this one. After that, I decided to jump into the thriller 48 Clues into the Disappearance of My Sister, because I figured this would give me a lot of what I was missing in that last book, of a faster pace, a clear goal, obviously, of finding her sister. I am already on page 92 with relatively little reading time because this book is just so fast to read. I think I've already shown it, but the font is large, the spacing is big, the margins are big, and the chapters are short. Each chapter is like 1 to 6 pages long. The audiobook for this on Hoopla I think is like 6 hours long total. So I made a lot of headway into this on sprints as well last night, and I'm going to go ahead and continue this today. I don't have much to report on as far as plot in this book. It really is just what the title says. We're following our main character who's sister has disappeared, and she's reflecting on all of these things she remembers leading up to her sister's disappearance and things that have happened after her disappearance that are connecting. She's kind of trying to fit things together like puzzle pieces, like clothes that were left on her floor that she doesn't feel like her sister would have just thrown about, shoe prints or boot prints or something that were found outside that she's skeptical her sister was wearing, a wallet that was found by the police in a location that she thinks was planted or isn't accurate to where her sister would have gone. She's just not feeling like things are adding up, and she's not sure if it's the police who are lying to her or if it's somebody else who's trying to construct a story that's not right. Is it her sister who was trying to run away and wasn't taken but was leaving these like breadcrumbs? Or even, is our main character trustworthy? She's made a couple of insinuations that she is keeping things secret too. So far I'm interested. I will go ahead and continue listening to this through my workday today. There should be no reason I don't finish it because it is so short, and I'm just really excited and hoping that there's a good punchy ending to this book. Maybe a twist or surprise I don't see coming, but that is what I'm going to continue with. So I will let you know probably once I finish this book. I'll give you some final thoughts, and then we'll talk about whatever I am reading next. All right, I have some updates. It's the next day. First of all, I finished 48 Clues into the Disappearance of My Sister. It read really quickly, like I knew it was going to. Obviously, this is a very short and quick book. I'm not really sure what I was expecting going into this one, but it wasn't really what I got. The writing style of this book is interesting. It's very ominous and secretive while also feeling juvenile, which was kind of a weird thing for me to wrap my head around, and I don't know that I ever really did. The main character in this book I think is like 30 at the time of this story being told, maybe a little younger, but she's an adult. But she's talking about the disappearance of her older sister, and a lot of the stories she tells are from their childhood. So the whole book just feels like it's a little girl talking about her older sister, when in actuality it's an adult, but she still lives in her childhood home as far as I could understand. And like she calls her father, and like, it's weirdly formal regarding some things, but again, weirdly juvenile in how it's told. And also just the way it has like the short chapters, it comes off as like how a child tells stories, where they just like talk about one quick thing while it's on their mind and then we'll hop to a different subject or a different story, and like there's nothing to connect them. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it was a weird reading experience. I didn't love it. I also didn't really love the mystery and don't feel like I got enough conclusion to feel satisfied with it as a mystery. I don't know. I was looking at reviews of this book earlier to try and see if somebody else could sum up what I was feeling about this book better than I can. There are only 378 ratings of this book and 86 reviews at the time that I'm filming this. The average rating though is 3.14, which is really low. But then I was reading a really well-written review by some person named Aaron that I don't know, who gave it 5 stars. And he was saying a bunch of things that he loved about this book and that he's loved about Joyce Carol Oates' other books in the past that I do think described it really well, but I didn't like it and he did like it. So I think it's a stylistic, personal preference type of book that some people will enjoy and connect with, and I just didn't. Some things that I can pick out from this review. First of all, Joyce Carol Oates has over 150 published books, which is absolutely insane. She is 84 years old. He says she has a certain style to her writing and a certain gothic creepiness that nobody else can duplicate. I do agree with that. It felt very weird and creepy, and I guess I can see the gothic, though this setting isn't really gothic, so I don't know if he's talking about this one in specific or just her work as a whole. And then later in the review he says, as far as creepiness, Oates write many of her stories in a way that there feels like there is an undercurrent of evil in every character and in every character's actions. I agree with that. I think I said earlier that I didn't really trust anyone in this book because the main character doesn't seem to trust them, and I still stand by that. And again, I'm still not really sure what we're supposed to have come out of this book with in terms of what happened and who was good and who was bad. And then this novel is written in 48 clues that adds to the story, but not all of the clues are physical things. Some are reactions, feelings, and behaviors. The mystery is how this all adds up. Clues in her novels never perfectly fit together, and it's up to the reader to decide what really happened. We're given the tools, but we have to build the conclusions ourselves. This makes a novel that is equal parts fascinating and disturbing. For as much as people like true crime podcasts and documentaries, it's a wonder why Joyce Carol Oates is not having a resurgence. Much of her fiction is built in a way where the reader is to draw their own conclusions. I feel like that is a very interesting thing to note and that I didn't know about this author's work, and is a good thing to share, I think, when talking about people who might like this book. Interesting that he said true crime readers might like this, because I don't like true crime and I didn't like this book. So maybe it all checks out, and if you do like sort of more unsolved mysteries or mysteries where you get to draw your own conclusions and make your own decision about what you think happened, you might like this better. I, however, am the type of reader who likes things to be explained to me. I like things buttoned up nicely. I like everything to click and fit together. So I think the abstract clues didn't really work for me in that way either. So I think I'm gonna give this book 2 stars. But again, it's truly not because I think this book is horrible. And I hope that I'm talking about it in a way that if any of you think you would like this book, you still are willing to give it a chance. It just provided me very little enjoyment. So that is that. Is this video off to a great start? Not really. I am continuing to learn things about Aardvark with every video that I do, with every book of theirs that I read. And I think I can reason that Aardvark tries to pick really unique books that will really heavily impact the right reader. And that's different for each one of their books, because I have read books from them that completely blow me away, and then I've read several books by them that just don't click with me, but not because they're not well written, just because of my personal preferences. And I think that's a good thing. I just think it needs to be said that that's what's happening here, especially compared to Book of the Month, which I think puts a lot more emphasis into commercialized picks and like widely marketable books that anybody could just pick up kind of on a whim, and they're going to have a good chance of liking it, but might not have a deep connection to it. At least that's my perception. So I guess this is kind of changing how I want to recommend Aardvark as a service. I think they do have some great book picks. I just think it's really on the consumer to do some digging into the books, to look into their synopses and the tropes and themes and things that are included within the book, to really find the one, hopefully every month, that they really think they're gonna love. I don't think this is the type of subscription where you can just pick the same genre every month and expect to have a generally good time. At least that's how I'm going to start using the service going forward. And especially because I do like a variety of genres, I really can take a look at every single book they're offering. Aardvark does a great job of describing the books that they're picking, not only including synopses, but also including like buzzwords and taglines. On their Instagram, they provide like comp titles, similar books to each book pick, or similar movies. Like if you enjoyed this book or movie, you might like this pick. And I'm now realizing that that's very helpful and intentional, because if you pick a book that's like things you haven't liked in the past, why would you like it in the future? So I will continue to talk about whether or not that proves to be true with the next few books that I read. But the next book I want to pick up, I want to be one that I think I have a good chance of liking. And I definitely think that book is The House of Eve. This was picked as a Read with Jenna book club pick, I think last month. So I actually think this one might have the most broad-reaching general enjoyment opportunity. I do think it's a historical fiction. Actually, I've already started it, so I can tell you about it. I started the audio, so let me see how far into it I am. Okay, I'm 40% into it, so actually quite a ways. This takes place in the 1950s. I think the first chapter is actually in 1948, but we're a few years into it, and we're following two different perspectives, both in that time period. One is a high school girl and one is a college girl. They're both Black women, and they're both going through a lot of discrimination, difficult times. Most of them are directly related to racism. One of the timelines in particular is really interesting because she's not only being treated poorly because of racism, but she's also experiencing colorism, where she goes to an all-Black university, but the different shades of Black of the students that attend make a big difference in how they're being treated. So she's a Black woman who is on the darker end of the spectrum, and she's being rejected by sororities and treated badly by her fellow students who are lighter skinned than her. And that so far is really interesting to read about. I'm interested to see how these two timelines intersect, or not even timelines, how these two perspectives intersect, because they are taking place at the same time. I'm wondering if these two women will meet each other in the future, or if there's some character that interacts with both of them that I haven't noticed or met yet. I'm not sure. I am really enjoying it so far, and I think I will get through it quickly, and I'm really hoping that this is going to be my winner for this video. And at this point, I would be shocked if I don't enjoy it through the end. So I will go ahead and finish that book and be back with an update once I have done that. And then I will get on with the last two books for this video, which will continue on in proving or disproving my hypothesis about readers either absolutely loving or really not connecting with Aardvark Book Club picks. Hello my friends, here with an update. Do I look my best today? No. But do I think you guys are here for my fashion statements? Also no. So we could just go ahead and talk about my reading updates. It is the next day, you know how this goes, but I did finish The House of Eve, and I'm gonna eat my words from the last clip because this book was great, and I think I can very confidently recommend it and say that it will be great to anyone else who also likes historical fiction books. There are a few triggers for this book that I will go into that I do think people maybe need to tread with caution if they're worried about reading about those specific topics. But if you're not going to be triggered by those, I think this is just a nice, well-rounded recommendation that I would most recommend to fans of Diane Chamberlain, specifically The Last House on the Street. I found myself thinking about a lot while reading this one. Not as much like Chris and Hannah, because this book deals a lot with being Black and the racism and colorism that these characters experience, and I don't think Chris and Hannah has the experience to be able to write that. And actually, now that I'm scrolling through my historical fiction shelf on Goodreads to look for comparable books or authors, I don't have very many that are Black authors talking about Black characters. I've read Alka Joshi, who is from India, Stacey Lee, who is Chinese American. Okay, Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson, I would say is similar to this. So I do think that's something I'm going to look more for in the future. I really do try to prioritize diverse titles and authors in my reading, but I think some genres I've had more success in that than others. And historical fiction, I think there are definitely incredibly important and impactful stories about BIPOC characters and by BIPOC authors that I should probably be making much more of an effort to seek out. But I am thankful that Aardvark had this as a pick and did send it to me, because it is also helpful when subscription services provide diverse titles for you. You know, if other readers are not willing to do the work, it's nice when companies just integrate that naturally, so that even if people aren't trying to consciously read diversely, they end up doing it anyway. So all that to say, I think this was a fantastic book. I'm gonna give it 4 stars. The reveal of how the 2 characters were connected, I think made sense, but there was no like surprise factor or anything. So to me, it just feels like a 4-star book instead of a 5-star book, but it's the type of 4-star that I will be pushing on people for sure. I think the summary of the plot that I gave earlier is pretty accurate, just about these 2 female main characters living in the 1950s. They both are pursuing their own hopes and dreams, and then also entering into relationships with men that change their paths going forward. One is in high school and one is in college at the start of this book, so that small little age gap there, but they definitely have similarities in what they're going through. The content warnings that I would attach to this book are, of course, racism. There is blatant on the page discrimination and harassment because of their skin colors, and sometimes it's even from other Black characters. And then there's also some trauma included in here related to miscarriage, stillbirth, infertility, that whole subject. I found it all a great story. I think this delivered on what it promises as far as a novel that explores what it means to be a woman and a mother, and I just really enjoyed reading this entire book from these characters' perspectives. So I am very interested to look more into Sadiqa Johnson's backlist. The Yellow Wife is definitely her most popular, but it looks like she has 2 other books in addition to that one that if I come across, I will absolutely pick up in the future. So good to have that winner nailed down for the video. I don't think that book necessarily needs my help being marketed, because again, it's a Read with Jenna book pick. That author has had a popular book before, so it's not as much of a hidden gem as I would love to have from Aardvark, but still a great book nonetheless. So with that, I am on to my next book, and I figured I would lighten the mood a little bit and pick up the cozy mystery. I have just started this book on audio. I think I'm like 3% through. So far, even just in the first chapter, this book is pretty witty, which I'm enjoying. Humor for me in books is always hit or miss. I'm sure that's true for all readers, but sometimes books that try to be too witty or that are too witty kind of go over my head and I don't find them as funny. But so far this is hitting the mark. This is about our main character who is culinarily trained. I guess I don't know if she's technically a chef or a baker or what, but she has dreams to open a restaurant, specifically a high class, like Michelin level restaurant. When she finds out that her grandmother was diagnosed with cancer. Again, that's in the first 3% of the book, so not a spoiler. And apparently she had been prescribed weed for medicinal purposes, and now the grandmother is trying to convince the main character to open her own weed bakery, which is a very hilarious premise. They live in California where weed is legal, and she's trying to tell her grandmother no because that's not what she wants for herself. But of course, that is what is ultimately going to happen. I do like in cozy mysteries learning about the little small town businesses that the main characters usually have. That's actually usually my favorite part of cozy mysteries. I love reading about the bakery or the bookshop or the coffee shop or the orchard or the ice cream shop, whatever it is that's the main character's like little business. I always want to know like way more about their day-to-day, how they run their business. I'm interested in that much more than the kind of cheesy mystery that usually arises. So hoping I get a lot of that business formation content in here. I wonder if there are recipes in the back of this book. I feel like that's a staple, right? For cozy mysteries that have, oh yes, there are cannabis infused butter, special salted caramel brownies, and Chloe's CBD chai latte. That's fun. I'm definitely not a chef or a baker, so I'm not going to attempt any of these recipes, but I do love that content that people make. So if anybody watching likes to read books and make recipes out of those books, here's an option for you. I'm recommending it even before I've finished the book. But yeah, hoping I continue to have fun with this book. I'm going to go into it lighthearted, light expectations. Maybe the mystery will blow me away, but super detailed, complex mysteries are not what cozy mysteries are necessarily known for. So should I fault it if it doesn't have that? In theory, no. We will see how I feel at the end of this one. I will be back either once I finished it, or if I have, for some reason, other thoughts that need to be shared partway through, I will do that. But you know the drill. I will be back once I have an update. Hopefully we stay on this positive reading vibe. All right, hello friends. I have an update for you. A lot of time has passed. Unexpectedly, my life got a little bit crazy. Let me recap a little bit what's been going on. So a few months ago, I announced a move that was happening for me and my family related to my husband getting a new job, and then some things fell through, so we paused the move, and long story short, the move is back on. We are moving to a different place than originally planned. I don't know if I'm quite ready to say where yet because now I'm a little bit scarred from that last experience and knowing that things can change at any given moment. But I will share more as it happens. But as a result of that being solidified, we needed to go ahead and proceed with trying to sell our house. So my life became preoccupied by re-cleaning, re-decluttering, getting our house staged and ready for showings. So that's been where my focus and attention has been, which has taken away from, you know, YouTube and a little bit from reading. But I am ready to come back with some updates, close out this video, and hopefully get it up shortly after. My first update is that I finished A Half-Baked Murder. I think I did do one update on this book at the very beginning when I started it, and after finishing it, I liked it. I feel weird about cozy mysteries. I just don't know if there's a perfect cozy mystery out there for me. I think it's just a little bit too cutesy for me. The mysteries themselves are never all that compelling. And this is similar in that I didn't really care about who was murdered, and in cozy mysteries, there's always usually the fact of somebody close to the main character is being framed for the crime or being suspected for some reason, and they're trying to solve the mystery to clear their name. And in this case, that's happening to our main character's aunt. And that for some reason is just never a very interesting premise for me. I never care about the aunt or the other character as much as the main character, so it doesn't feel as high stakes as I need it to feel for me to really love a mystery. So the mystery portion unfortunately fell a little bit flat. I did though enjoy the cannabis bakery side of this. Usually my favorite part of cozy mysteries is the small little business that the main character usually owns, and this is no different. I really liked reading about her trying out different recipes, figuring out how to make this business work in this town where there is still a stigma around weed usage. She wants to find the fine balance between a bakery and a dispensary because she's really trying to not be like either. And I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed, again, her testing out recipes and trying to make them taste good and not just taste like weed, which is interesting. I don't know much about that topic, so I have no idea how difficult of a task that is, but it was interesting to read about. And also about her trying to be intentional about her business, not trying to force weed usage on anybody. Obviously, she's not trying to trick people into consuming it. So again, just finding the right balance between making this a marketable business, but being responsible given what it is, and seeing value in providing it for the right customers, but not going overboard. All of that was super interesting to me. So I'd say that part of the book was like 4-star feelings. The mystery was like 2-star feelings. So overall, I'm giving this book a 3-star rating. And I definitely would recommend this to people who like cozy mysteries in general and are looking for a premise that's just a little bit different in, again, that small business aspect of it. And then after that book, I did try to pick up Gilded Mountain. And I am so sorry for where this video and conversation is going to go, but I ended up DNFing this book pretty early on. I did try it. The synopsis of this book is that it's set in early 1900s Colorado, where our main character leaves her family's snowbound mountain cabin to work in a manor house for this rich family that actually employs her father and I guess dominates this town. And I was hoping this book would read like Kristen Hanna. I think Kristen Hanna does books like this really well, where we're following a main character going on some sort of journey, whether it's physically going on a journey or just emotionally and mentally going on a journey. But unfortunately, when I started this book, it felt a lot more to me like a historical classic. I feel like it's actually a pretty common classic premise of a poor woman or character going into this rich, lavish lifestyle, kind of like Jane Eyre-esque, or even, is it Emma? Like that type of premise. I haven't read Emma, but I feel like it gives me vibes of a young woman being surrounded by like rich, lavish lifestyle. And I don't know, for some reason, rich, wealthy, historical settings don't really work for me as well as characters really in the thick of their struggles. And maybe I would have gotten more of that had I continued reading this book, but it just wasn't giving me what I wanted at the moment. And in the midst of a very crazy life situation right now, I really just need to be reading what I'm enjoying, or at least interested in. And this was not that. So I did DNF this book. I don't think I'm gonna revisit it. I can't see myself being in the mood for this type of story. So I think I'll unhaul it and try to give it to somebody who it will work better for. So unfortunately a DNF, and I didn't rate it because I don't rate books that I DNF. But the results of this video were definitely unexpected. A DNF of a book that's premise just didn't quite work for me. I don't think I would enjoy it had I finished it. A DNF of a different book that in theory worked for me, but just the layout of the book, the setup, and the way it's told didn't end up working for me. And I think my enjoyment was just going to continue declining as I went through it. But honestly, I feel like these could both work for the right reader. So hopefully I talked well enough about what they're about that anyone who it sounds like they might be up your alley, you are interested in them. Then let's see, what else did we have? A 2-star mystery thriller, a 3-star cozy mystery, and a 4-star historical fiction. Every time I do one of these Aardvark reading vlogs, I feel like I leave with a different opinion on the service, and I'm still kind of figuring it out. What am I looking for from a subscription service like this? What kind of books do I need to be picking from them? I like reading a diverse range of genres and perspectives, and reading books that I wouldn't have necessarily picked for myself if it weren't for the service. But I do think I really need to look into the synopses of the books, the tropes that they include, the type of story that it is in terms of format or perspective or time period or like length of time of the story that takes place. I feel like all of those I need to pay a little bit more attention to when I'm picking Aardvark books. But I am going to continue using the service because I am interested always in the books that they pick, and I want to share my opinion of them. I think it's valuable just as content for other people maybe wondering if they should be picking the same books that I pick. I don't know. Let me know if you find value in these videos, if you are a member of Aardvark or you're looking to become one. I did want to mention at the end of this video, because I just got an email from Aardvark, that they are extending their promotion where they're offering first-time subscribers their first book for only $4 plus free shipping. You can use my code on the screen here or the link down in the description box to get that discount if you are interested in trying Aardvark for the first time. No pressure at all. Obviously, I'm being extremely honest on my thoughts on these books, and if you're not interested, you do not have to sign up. But if you are interested in trying one for only $4, I feel like that's the best deal you can get for a brand new hardcover book. I believe the deal at this time is going through June, so if you want to sign up now and pick one of the April books, you can do that. Or if you want to wait and see what the picks are in May or June and use my code then, that is totally fine as well. No pressure at all, but it is there for you to use if you want that discount, and using my code specifically just lets them know that my content is what inspired you to try them out. And I do get a very small commission off of that $4 for full transparency, but that's why I'm going to continue sharing the code with my followers. So other than that, I don't think I have anything else. Gotta get back to cleaning my house for yet another house showing today. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.